Hello, my name is Theo. I'm a convert to Christ, and at the Easter Vigil 2022, I was received into the Catholic Church through baptism, confirmation, and Eucharist. Long before that, however, between the ages of 19 and 20, I fathered 3 children. The first was lost to miscarriage, the second was aborted, and the third was likely also aborted, though I wasn't present, so I can't say for sure. I'd like to tell you about it from my perspective as a man and as a father, though few people in our culture today would call me a father, just as few would recognize my children as human beings. When I was 19, I embarked upon a romantic relationship with an old friend. We were both fairly hostile to religion and both had drug and alcohol problems, so we saw no reason to abstain from fornication. One weekend, my girlfriend went away to a music festival, drinking and taking pills. When she got back, she had a miscarriage. We hadn't known she was pregnant, so it came as quite a shock. However, the grief and confusion we both experienced was not enough to dissuade us from our lifestyle. So a couple of months later, she fell pregnant a second time. This time there was no miscarriage, and we were left to consider our next move. We attended a consultation at a BPAS facility. My girlfriend requested that I accompany her, but her request was denied, and I was left in the waiting room while my child's fate was decided. I don't know what they said to her or what pressure was applied, but she went into that consultation a vulnerable, inebriated 19-year-old, hoping to explore her options, and came out with an abortion booked. The day of the abortion was chaos. We had a car crash on the way. My girlfriend was driving, and she was so distracted that when traffic came to a halt at a red light, she kept going and drove straight into the back of someone's car. Upon arrival, we found the BPAS facility cold and uninviting. When my girlfriend was called through for the procedure, she asked if I could accompany her, but her request again was denied. I sat quietly in the waiting room while my daughter was killed. I looked around, but no one would even make eye contact with me, except for a receptionist who, on occasion, looked up from her work to glare at me. After what seemed like an age in that waiting room, my girlfriend came back, but our baby, who we had taken to calling Bean because on the ultrasound she had looked like a little kidney bean, was gone. Neither of us knew how to process what had happened or what to make of our participation in it. We didn't even have the language to talk about it amongst ourselves. To cut a long story short, in our grief and knowing no other way to reconnect or comfort one another, we continued having unprotected sex. Inevitably, she fell pregnant a third time the following year. I don't know exactly what happened to our third child. I was told that one day after passing out at work, my girlfriend was rushed to hospital, where she was told that she was pregnant, but that the baby was deformed and that a procedure was necessary to prevent further harm coming to her. I accepted this story at the time, but now I have my doubts as to the moral nature of the procedure, and I have to wonder if our third child was also deliberately killed. Far worse than suffering oneself is witnessing the suffering of a loved one. Before I could even begin looking at my own grief and guilt, I had to watch my girlfriend in her agony. I can't speak for her or tell you how she felt, but I can give you my observations. Both in the lead up to the abortion and for months afterwards, she vacillated between believing that it was the responsible thing and acknowledging it to be an irreversible mistake. Eventually, she adopted a feminist mindset, telling herself that she had merely exercised her right to choose what she did with her own body. Meanwhile, my grief led me in the opposite direction. I was inconsolable and angry. I knew that I had been a part of something very wrong, something accepted and endorsed by the state and society in which I lived. I was repulsed. I explored radical political philosophy and retreated into ideology. I quit drink and drugs and became a committed National Socialist. It was easier to externalize and project the blame for all that suffering and death onto liberals and Jews and so on and so forth. But my new crutch, politics, was no better than my past addictions, and before long I came once again to a crisis point. It was then that I first encountered Christ. Through prayer and the gospel, he took the reins and guided me towards repentance, conversion, and healing, an ongoing process. I don't know what my former girlfriend is up to nowadays, but I hope she finds a measure of peace in God as I have. Whatever peace I now have comes from the assurance Christ has offered me that our children are human beings, even if the culture will not acknowledge them as such, and that despite our actions, they're very much alive in the communion of saints. And that, as a final word, that peace and healing was largely thanks to Rachel and the Rachel's Vineyard team. So I'll finish by thanking them for that. Thank you.